Right?
It's the dynamic duo.
Yeah.
Know it.
That's how it is. Oh,
It's
Jesus,
always
I
a
almost killed myself.
Yeah.
I'm okay, Mr. Satan's all right. Make sure you let people know Satan is okay.
Yeah.
That's weird. They're like, yeah, Satan's okay. Welcome, everybody. This is weird.
King, he's also king.
Never had a microphone like this before. Check.
The king.
Check, 1, 2, 1, 2.
These armies?
Yo, can I turn my headphones up?
Huh? King Yama.
Turn me down, turn my headphones up.
Right on.
How's everybody doing?
Yeah, how we doing out there? All right. How many of you are Dragon Ball Z fans? Thank God. Otherwise, you're at the wrong panel. All right, so, guys, my name is Chris Baker. This is my good friend.
Josh Martin.
That's right. That's right. We play. Thank you. We're just going to keep having them applaud. I play Mr. Satan in Dragon Ball Z.
There you go.
And I'm Martian Boo!
Run! We're all going to die!
I'm Martian Boo too.
Turn me into chocolate and eat you. It's not fun.
What about pudding?
Or pudding, he will turn you into pudding too. He's non-discriminative.
Depends on how I'm feeling.
Yeah. Whether he wants candy or he wants pudding.
Cravings.
Well, you know what, guys? It's been a long time since Josh and I started the show. We were young.
Yeah.
We were young. We were in our 20s. The year for myself, it was 1999 when I first auditioned at Funimation for Dragon Ball Z. I didn't really have a good grasp on. I mean, I knew what anime was. I'd watched lots of anime growing up, Robotech and Battle of the Planets and Star Blazers, and you know, I had some fun watching some anime. But Dragon Ball Z was not something that was on my radar at the time. But I saw Mr. Satan in the audition list that day, and I thought, I'm going to be that guy. Because he looked like Hulk Hogan, and I did a pretty good Hulk Hogan, I thought. But it was more of a mismatch of like 80s wrestlers for me. So like there was a little Macho Man in there, a little Randy, Jesse the Body Ventura. I threw a little bit of that. So it was like an amalgamation of 80s wrestlers that I liked, that I threw into this voice, and they gave me the part. And then about a year or so later, Josh, what happened then?
Well, the part of Majin Buu came up, and Chris Sabat came to see a comedy show that Rager and I were
Yes.
in, along with Mike McFarlane, the voice
Right.
of Master Roshi,
Master Roshi.
and other things. So we
Right.
were all in a comedy troupe together.
Yeah, Master Roshi. I'm an old guy who likes pornography.
Dirty old man. So yeah, Sabat came to the show and he saw a sketch that we did, character I did called the Pillsbury Homeboy. And there was the idea was that the Pillsbury Doughboy got jumped on his way home from school one day by the keeper elves, and it kind of made him so mad that he turned to
Right.
gangsta rap. And so I redid Snoop Dogg's "What's My Name."
What's my name? Woohoo! I'm going 187 with my dough in your mouth.
Don't tell your parents, kids.
Yeah, right. So yeah, Sabat thought that might work for the Fat Pink one coming up, and 17 years later, you're right.
I mean, that was a long-running sketch we did too. I mean, Josh didn't just do that song; he did multiple songs over the years. That
Yeah, it started
changed.
out.
I mean, he came out in full regalia, baker's hat. He had white overalls on. I mean, he looked as much like the Pillsbury Homeboy or Doughboy that you could think
Big
of.
gold rolling pin hanging
Yes.
from a chain around my neck.
Yes.
Flavor Flav.
And then he had a posse, he had a crew. You know, we'd all jump
old
up there.
dirty bakery.
The old dirty bakery. and I tell you, it was quite. People looked forward to the new Pillsbury Homeboy song that was coming out. So.
It was fun.
So yeah, now all these years later, oddly enough, that was Josh and I were friends in acting school. We met at KD Studio in Dallas, Texas. It's an acting conservatory that is still there, still thriving. From there, ultimately ended up on this show. So, you know, we've actually been best friends for 22 years now, but only been on this show 17 and 18 years. And ultimately find ourselves as these characters who are our best friends on the show. So we like to be able to come out and get to know you guys and kind of tell our little story, kind of that we find that interesting, that we're best friends in real life and best friends in the show, and life imitates art sometime, and here we are, and we're happy to be here, that kind of thing. So, thank you for having us. But it has been a long time, and I'm sure you guys have seen and watched all different sort of forms and versions of Dragon Ball. I mean, there was Dragon Ball, which both of us were on as well. Because after we hadn't done Dragon Ball yet, we're doing Dragon Ball Z, and we're like, hey, there's this Dragon Ball show. We're like, well, we'll do that too. And so we went back and did Dragon Ball, and played several characters on there. And
What'd you do?
I was a character named Bacterion. I was also a character named Major Metallotron.
And all bonds.
Yes, well, exactly. Well, Major Metallotron was just sort of an Arnold Schwarzenegger ripoff without the accent, which is hard to do. Because you really want to go, I am the Dominator, you know, if you want. So you just have to do it without the accent. But then Bacterion, he was special because his special move, I think he fought Krillin, and his special move, he was kind of like... Yes. Well, let me get there, sir. Don't spoil it for everybody. He was kind of like a giant-sized pig pen from Peanuts. You know, we have that dust cloud around him all the time. This is what this guy was. If he had grown up to be a big giant fighter guy, and he would rifle his hands around in his pants, as it were, and he would come at you with his stink finger. That was his special move. Yeah, I didn't write it, dude. Don't get mad at me. That's a Akira Toriyama, people. All right? So his stink finger. So that was what was special about him. I really thought, when I first did it, I looked at the director and went, really? That's what he does? Yeah, man, I don't know. All right, so, yeah, so then Dragon Ball Z, and then there was always a video game that was coming out, so we kind of kept up that way, and then there was another movie here and there, and then some years later they decided to kind of redo it all with Dragon Ball Z Kai, where they just simply took the manga story and cut out all the what they called you guys called the fluff episodes, the extra stories, which a lot of stuff was fun stuff and there got left out, but still they just moved the manga story. So we got to do it all over again. And then ultimately they said, guys, we're stopping at the Cell Saga. We're not going to do Kai Buu Saga. And then, they started to make some money. You're like, okay, we'll do Kai Buu Saga. And so we did Kai Buu Saga. And like 3 years ago, we finished Kai Buu Saga. And as you know, it just now is appearing for the first time after Super on Toonami or Adult Swim on Saturday night. So we did that like 3 years ago. Thank God they finally put it on the air, man. I was like, you guys ever gonna put that on the air? I got a lot of stuff. I talk a lot now. I would like to hear myself on the TVs.
My ego needs it.
Right? So that really is kind of our story, which leads us in then to now Dragon Ball Super, a brand new show. So it's like this never-ending process. It's like this crazy Japanese blessing they have put upon us, and they're making sure that we don't go hungry for as long as they can possibly try. We hope it continues forever and always.
Yeah.
Right? I hope that one day I get so old that and Dragon Ball is still going, and somebody has to take over my role because I can't sound like him anymore. That I want to die knowing someone else is Mr. Satan. That's what I want. Is that sad?
I hope I can still do it when I'm old.
Yeah? And you're like 85?
I'm probably like 60.
Yeah, boo!
Hey, pudding. Me eat a Mylanta.
Mylanta?
It's heartburn.
Do they still make that?
Milk of magnesia. They don't make mom eat
Mylanta.
Oh, Mylanta.
Those were the commercials. Like Nuprin. Remember Nuprin? Little, yellow, different. No, so you don't remember that. It was the dumbest commercial. It was just aspirin that was yellow. They're like, little, yellow, different. gonna start tripping out on these things. That all being said, guys, we've talked enough. We want to hear from you guys. So let's open up to some questions. Let's do that. Hello, sir. What is your name? Volunteer, sir.
Jerry.
Jerry.
Give it up for Jerry.
Sir, what is your question?
Josh,
Go ahead.
I was also on Dragon Ball. I was being Commander Red.
Commander Red was awesome. That was my second role. I did Boo first, and then I got Commander Red, and they just said he got his legs blown off, and the whole reason he wants the Dragon Balls is so that he can be tall.
He can wish his legs
Yes,
back.
he would wish himself tall. That was his whole.
He was a little guy. I thought he was short because he had no legs. But he walked around on like his knees.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, he had feet. They fixed it,
So they just replaced his feet on the part of the legs that have been blown off.
as I understand it.
And I remember also Android either 14 or 15.
I'm 15, he's
I'm
14.
14. That's another little pairing that we've had along the way too. I'm Android 14. He was 15.
And I remember you as also as King Yama.
King Yema.
King Yama from the other world.
Yes. Going on Snake Way, are we, Goku? Yes, well, mahogany. I love my mahogany desk. Anyway.
Chris, this is technically not a DBZ episode, but you are slated to play McGruff for the next Screw Attack Death Battle, Smokey the Bear versus McGruff the Crime Dog. Is that right?
It is true, yes. Yeah, I tweeted that out. Actually, I wasn't sure. Somebody had tweeted to me, they were like, Death Battle, and it said Smokey McGruff. And then somebody had asked was Chad James, who works out at Screw Attack, hey, who are the actors? And they were like, it's none other than, voice of Vegeta, Chris Sabat, and at Rager Coaster, myself. And I was like, cool, I can start tweeting this out then. And then I tweeted it out, and I noticed that Screw Attack themselves had not tweeted this out. And I was like, well, what happened there? And so then the next day, Screw Attack apparently was like, oh, well, I guess we should tweet this out. Chris is tweeting about it. I'm like, but you guys said it first? I don't know. I don't know if I'm in trouble or not for tweeting that out early. But somebody tweeted it at me first, so I just rolled with it. But yes, we are, Sabat is Smokey the Bear. I am McGruff the Crime Dog. And they fight it out to the death.
That's awesome.
Your favorite 80s PSA characters fight to the death. I think my favorite line, there's a little trailer for it right now, and my Sabat as Smokey the Bear says, what is it? Only if not even you can prevent this. That was mine. So yes.
Regarding of the dubbing, what's your opinion on the Latino Spanish dub of Dragon Ball Z?
Well, oddly enough, Sabat just told me this recently, and I did not know this, but we didn't have as much access to the Japanese dub in the very beginning that we would have liked. So the Spanish version was more easily translatable because we had a lot more Spanish speakers in Texas than we did Japanese speakers, and we couldn't get the translations from Japan. It didn't quite work like that just yet. So early on, they actually used the Spanish version for a lot of our translations as to what we used then in our show. So it played a much larger part than you had realized in the beginning.
And it took longer to ship out from Japan to America.
Well, yeah, and back then you didn't have, it wasn't as beautiful and digital as technology has made it these days, and being able to very quickly move and change the thing. We used literally old beta machines. We were recording on tape onto the video itself, these old beta machines, and it was, it would click and whir, and Pro Tools didn't fully communicate properly with the beta machines themselves, so it would crash all the time, which was fine for the actor because you got paid by the hour. So when the thing crashed, you're like, all right, I'll stay an extra hour. So those kind of things, but that's how that happens.
What's your favorite part in doing Dragon Ball Z's?
My favorite part is just doing the voice, just being able to be silly and kind of crazy and ridiculous. Something that I don't get to do normally because I'm a father and a husband.
A responsible
Gotta
father.
be responsible and stuff most of the time, and then they call me to come in and talk silly on a microphone, give me some money.
Okay.
I mean, for me, of course, the voice is fun. Getting to come out here and meet guys like you and fans here, I mean, this is what we really enjoy. Is because you do this thing, you don't get a reaction. There's no audience after you walk out of the booth. You know, it's just the director going, "All right, next." And, you know, so getting to come out here and see that you guys appreciate it very much and have enjoyed it all these years, and continue to enjoy it. There's an entire generation of people who now have kids, and they're passing it on to their kids. So, you know, it's been this really kind of crazy ride to watch and to see how far this thing has gone. You know, and as far as like being a responsible father, you know, I'm not quite as responsible father as Josh is. But Josh's advice to his daughters when I am around is to not to listen to anything Uncle Chris says. That nothing Uncle Chris says is true, and if he tells you to do something, do not do that. Do not do that. So, but what else we got?
So for the first time when you guys were actually acting out the voices live, how did you feel? Like, were you nervous? Were you guys excited, or what?
Well, I mean, the first time I ever did it, it was for the audition. So after I'd kind of done that, and they called me up and said, we'd like you to play the part of Hercule. I was like, well, that's great. And so going in wasn't really nervous. It was really like, okay, now I get to do the thing that I wanted to do for so long. Like, this is cool. I'm voicing a cartoon. You know, that was part of the plan somewhat. You know, to be doing stuff like this and to be paid as an actor. So that part was exciting to kind of just. You know, we had done live shows and we'd been paid to be performers and things like that, but I don't know, getting paid to be on the show that ultimately was on TV and stuff like that, it was like this